Okay, welcome. This is the Patriot Trading News Hour. We're having a bit of a technical difficulties here at KHNC, which is how we get the show over there to Arizona. Joe is working fervently on trying to find the solution, and on my end, we were working hard the last hour. So this is radio, and things can go wrong, and so I get to be on with the Arizona guys for a little while here. I'm sure Joe will probably join us here in a little bit. But, so Joe being the gold and silver guy for you guys out there in Arizona for all these years, and Eric, his uncle, before that, and when they were together for a while, KXXT didn't have some of the problems that we're experiencing trying to rebuild what's going on here at KHNC. So we've got things really working well, but technology... our partner Brian, who's the smartest of the three of us, when our partner that bought in and does the show with me, the Front Range News Hour here in Colorado, Brian always reminds me that technology is so wonderful and great in our worlds, but when something goes wrong, it can really make things very difficult on you because Joe is used to putting a show on and it fires off, and he does his thing and he sells gold and silver. And with KHNC, we're building it. It's getting better. The guys, if you're from Arizona and you haven't listened to any KHNC radio, where it was to where it is today is a vast improvement. But we're brand new to running radio stations and everything. So just hang tough with us. And I love it. I love what we're doing. I like the way it is coming along. But a day like this, there's a little bit of nervousness out there. So I'm going to give the number to call. If you want to buy gold and silver today, the number is 800-951-0592. I believe Joe will have something for us to sell here in the next segment or two. But you've got me to get you through the first segment. I'll come back on with or without Joe on the next segment. I'll talk about something. I'll figure out something. But let's face it. Joe's the numbers man. I'm more the conspiracy guy. So if he's not back on the next segment, I will. I got a few things I can cover, and we'll have some fun here on the radio. And wow. Let me just delve into a little bit. We have this thing called a barracks box, and the barracks there's one for Joe, and there's one here at KHNC. So when we've made some improvements and changed some of our schedule, Ramon, who's been running Joe's show for years, we've switched over to running the show here, and Ramon pulls the show from us instead. So now it's really more of a KHNC show and less of a KXXT show as far as who's handling the chores of making and running the broadcast. So Ramon, for example, he's had to weather some of our mistakes and problems when we put in the new board here. And Ramon's a cool dude, but man, if you make a couple lunkhead mistakes, he'll let you know. So, but what's going on is Joe can broadcast into our radio station from his barracks box. It's working just fine. Something has gone on that we are unable to get our audio to him. So basically, Joe is talking into dead air, and there's nothing there telling him, hey, here's a commercial break, or here's some bump music. He can't even hear me. I can't get on with any input like from our internet or from my mic. And so we hooked him up, and we did the last hour at KHNC through the phones, and Joe is currently trying to figure out the problem. So that is where we are at. So for today and for this segment, you've got Jason, partner Jason. I bought into the company, and I haven't been on to Arizona for a while because I've been too busy running KHNC. But I'm one of the guys, myself and Brian and Glenn in Maryland. We bought into Patriot Trading Group last year. Any of you guys listening, you may have heard it was Groundhog's Day last year when Joe went on the air and was asking for partners to join up in this adventure that is Patriot Trading Group. And Joe was seeing that the numbers and the sales in Colorado were slowly and steadily going down. And Joe had to make a decision whether he wanted to keep Colorado going or just step away and just leave it Arizona only. And I think the curiosity got the best of him because I think he thought, well, when they used to have the picnics here in Colorado, and Eric would come down here, and he would come down here, and they'd do some things down here with Johnstown and the customers here, that the sales were better. So Joe decided, instead of dumping Colorado and not knowing exactly what was going on at the radio station, he asked for partners to buy in. I'm one of the guys. I came in head first. I was convinced this was a good opportunity. So I called him that weekend. Actually, I called him that Friday, and then I think I may have talked to him over the weekend or on the following Monday. And I think I was at the top of his list. I think there was a criteria of things he wanted, and I think I hit on every single thing he wanted. I had availability. I had the money to jump in. I had experience selling gold and silver. I knew about the economy, especially with my process serving job. I was handing out all the bad news for the people that were unable to pay their bills. So I had a unique look at how the markets and how the average Joe was able to handle these things. So I signed on, and the funny thing is, with process serving, it's sort of it's an independent contractor job, and you get a certain amount of work from certain clients, basically. And my major guy that I got pretty much all of my stuff from, 6 days later after I signed up with Joe, I lost 90% of my work, which basically meant that jumping in with Patriot Trading Group, it was, in my mind, was meant to be. Meant to be. I mean, when you lose 90% of your work from one job, when you're moving slowly into another one, there's definitely something more to it than just a decision being made. So we're going to come into our first break. Everybody stay tuned. We'll have more from Patriot Trading Group when we get back from the break. Welcome back. The number 2 call is 800-951-0592. I'm going to give you some really good reasons why to buy gold and silver. So the number to call, 800-951-0592. I'm sure we'll have a special before the hour is up. You might as well call in. Wendy will get you set up with that special. This is the time to buy gold and silver. We have the debt money system that America is involved in. The central bank, we're set up in such a way that boom and bust cycles are built into the system. It's an absolute. It's not a should it or maybe is it happening. The way the system is set up is you have boom cycles and bust cycles, and this is how the bankers are able to scrape up assets by the ton. Because let's face it, they don't like their own money. Their Federal Reserve notes are just there to steal from us. So we are getting very, very close. Whether it be a few months or maybe a year or two, to this next complete bust. And this one is going to be much worse than the one in 08. This next one is going to be, it's going to be chilling. And in my mind, seeing how gold has been moving, especially in the last generation, the last 20 years, it tends to hit a roof, excuse me, and then it goes down a little bit. And anytime the gold seems to push past that roof, it spikes to a higher level, and it never comes back down below the previous roof. So we were at about $1,900 an ounce in 2011. So when this next market dump happens, gold will shoot, and I know it will blast past that 1,900 level. Where it will spike to, I don't know how far up it will go, but you can rest assured that once it blasts past that 1,900 level, that'll be the new low. That'll be the floor. So this is what on our show, Brian and myself, the Colorado Front Range News Hour here in KHNC. I like to talk about this being the good old days. I like listening to the guys that have been buying gold and silver longer than I have, because they always talk about, hey, when in 2000 or 2001, I was buying it for $250 an ounce, and that's probably going to be Joe. I'm going to just put him on. All right, Joe, I'm taking that's you.
It is me.
All right. I was just talking about gold hitting $1,900 an ounce, and how I believe when we blow past that on the next market dive, that may be the next floor. I mean, it probably will not go below that once it does. What is your take on that to start?
Well, it's funny you were talking about that. Some very, very interesting technical pictures emerging in the gold market. Obviously part of the reason why we've seen this what they would consider this big move, if you will, gold, which was on the verge of, getting ready to break down, if you will, according to a lot of these analysts out there. And gold formed a very important, and again, this is for all the computer trades and all of those things, which really today is what 90% of all trading happens this way now from a technical perspective. A huge bottom formation that has developed over the last several years. Some call it, a double bottom, triple bottom, but this bottoming formation that has occurred in gold at this $1,267 level. And all of a sudden, when gold resisted that level this last time, it set off a new technical picture, which is why you're seeing the gold market, all of a sudden it explodes to the upside here. In a matter of days, we went from, essentially $1,267 to $1,327, I think, over a 3-day trading period. Because what's happened is all these algorithms, they all use the same models. And so now gold has set what they're calling a reversal pattern, and it sets off all these different waves. And the first wave, it will be 1375, which is kind of where gold had stalled ever since it bottomed at 1,050. Gold's gotten into this, I call it, the 1350 to the 1375 range, and never seemingly can break through. Now we're looking at that is target number one. The target number two then jumps to the 1,500 level, and to Jason's point, the 1,900 level. But what this chart reversal did is now it opens up all the levels above that, which is, I forget what waves, E, F, and G, if you will, if you're a wavist out there, which sets models at 3,000, 5,000, and beyond. And it's why you're seeing a lot of the billionaires out there now all of a sudden talking about gold again. One of my favorite guys, one of the things we're going to talk about today, Stanley Druckenmiller. You guys know he's a huge favorite of mine. There's three guys that I tell you out there that you want to pay attention to, and really actually four guys that I like. Jeff Gundlach, Ray Dalio, Stanley Druckenmiller, and then Charles Bitterman, the Trim Tab from Trim Tabs. Those are the guys that I really like the best because they don't care. They want to make money, right? And they will flat out tell you very, very clearly where we are headed, and especially if you want to look more than 24 hours ahead or 24 days ahead. If you actually want to look out at the next 5 to 10 years, they're going to tell you when this chart pattern broke, Stanley Druckenmiller sold every single stock in his fund, and this is where the billionaires play. He's in treasuries and he's in gold. Those are the only two things he's sitting on, and the reason is very simple. He says rates are going back to zero here in the United States, and of course you'll see we got a rally today. Jay Powell came out and said, we're going to do whatever it takes, and it's the sign of the times when 2.35 between 2.25% and 2.5% Fed's funds rate is a place where the paper markets can no longer stand. Economic growth can't happen. We had horrible factory numbers out today again, down 0.8%, continuing this string of bad data. And I think Jason's right. I mean, the charts say it. This is why, because let's face it, gold's fallen before, and it comes back and it'll rally, a little bit here, $5 here or $10 here. But the reason for the big, I guess, and I don't even call $60 a big move, but for the rapid pace of it is all these algorithms are firing off at the same time.
Well, and Joe, let me
go ahead.
Let me support. So, a statement I made just as you were coming on is that I believe when this thing, it'll be the next market downturn. That the reason I fully believe 1900 will be the floor once it blows past that is I just look at the quick history of metals, and Joe hates the junk metals like zinc and copper and things like that. But I like to look at the history of where these metals have gone since we've detached the gold from the dollar. And it was, just face it, 1933, gold became too expensive for the $20 gold piece. The $20 gold piece was going to start being hoarded by the countries of Europe because there was more value in the gold versus the dollar. So they got rid of gold. We couldn't have it. Then in 1965, they took the silver, a cheaper metal that was still in our money. They had to take the silver. In 1982, they took the copper out. They couldn't have a copper penny. There's still copper in the money, the higher denomination coins, but we couldn't have copper pennies anymore because there's too much copper in the pennies. The funny thing is, this next market dump we have, they won't even be able to afford to make zinc pennies. The amount of zinc that's in a penny nowadays is going to be worth more than the actual 1 cent piece. And this is why when gold goes up and it busts through a high level, when it comes down, it's not going to go any lower. The metal physically is too expensive to get below 1900 the next time around. That's how I see it.
Well, and that's a great way to look at it. And if you even go and just stay in the gold market itself, let's review history here. When gold hit 800, right? We went off the gold standard. Gold was rallying, right? The central bank was having trouble getting their arms around things, and Paul Volcker came out and, raised rates to some, today. Think about where Volcker's rates were versus today. And, we were able to withstand interest rates of 16 to 20% back then. And today we can't even have a 10-year note above 3% without causing issue. But when you look at gold, it fell to a low of $250 from 800. And then gold, as it climbed back up the ladder, similar patterns emerged. Like right now, we talked about 1375, how gold's had a tough time getting over that. Well, if you go back and you look at when gold bottomed at 250, gold had a really hard time getting above 500. When it finally broke above 500, it went all the way to $710. Okay? Before gold could break 800, it went back to 500. And then when it broke 800, it went all the way to 1,050. Right? And then gold fell all the way back to 800. And then rallied to 1,900. Where did gold bottom after gold hit 1,900? After quantity, they launched QE3. Gold bottomed where?
2015. It went down to 1,050.
1,050. Right, and this is the exact pattern gold has played. So when I talked about the technical charts for gold and say, how do you go from we're sitting here at 1325. How do we get to 3,000? And how does Jason come out and say, hey, gold's never going to go below 1,900? This is how. So now this breakthrough, this call it double bottom, whatever you want to call it. Now the technical picture for gold breaks through 1375. Then you're on your way back. You're going to blow past the 1900. And then Jason said, now 1900 becomes the floor. And I love how Jason kind of used it too from, looking at, hey, we had to take the gold away because it was too expensive. We had to take the silver away. It was too expensive. Had to take the copper away. It was too expensive. Now zinc's too expensive, right? And so you always have these new higher floors. And when you have a what I'll call a computer-driven, all these companies, they write all, like, they believe, it's nonsense, but this is, when you have a Federal Reserve that's loaded with nothing but academics and academia, right, they think they can manage things with a formula, right? And this is the same thing that with all of these algorithms that they create, they think they can get rid of the human being with the algorithm. And this is how these algorithms work.
Well, and Joe, check
right?
this,
they
check
want to
this
go
out,
back.
Joe.
They want to retest, right? We know this. Oh, yeah, we're retesting this low and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And I always will say this to everybody. There's one number that hasn't been retested, and only one. Well, I shouldn't, probably not only one. But Dow 6,700. We hit that number, right? The banks unleashed, or, the central bank unleashed QE3 and all the bond buying and all that. That one's never been retested. I hope that's not where we're going. I hope it's not. But, that's what history tells me it's going to be. I hear the music. We're coming up on a break. We'll be right back. Don't touch that dial.
This is the Phyllis Schlafly Report, a daily look at the significant issues of our time from an experienced conservative perspective. Sponsored by Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, this broadcast continues the legacy of Phyllis Schlafly and stands against forces that mock traditional values, slander America, and redefine the family. Now, here's the president of Phyllis Schlafly Eagles, Ed Martin.
In the case of Department of Commerce v. New York, the U.S. Supreme Court will soon decide whether the 2020 census can ask about citizenship status. While this might seem innocent enough, Democrats are being their usual hyperbolic selves and acting like this is a racist attack on the Hispanic community by our president. Nothing could be further from the truth. Many nations ask about citizen status in their censuses. The United States did also until 1950. And so you can hardly say there's no precedent here. Yet far be it for the Democrats to let President Trump actually do his job. Now the case is in the hands of the Supreme Court, and this could easily become Trump's biggest court victory to date. When the case was brought before the court for oral argument in April, Trump took to Twitter to let the American people know what was going on. Can you believe that the radical left Democrats want to do our new and very important census report without the all-important citizenship question? Trump asked. Report would be meaningless and a waste of billions, ridiculous, that it costs to put together. Trump was right to call the left's ideal report meaningless. In fact, it might be even worse than that. A census failing to ask about citizenship inflates the population counts of California and New York to the detriment of many other states. Illegal aliens are counted in those states as though they were citizens, and New York and California soak up tax dollars this way. It's no coincidence that the most outspoken opponent of the citizenship question is the Attorney General of the vast sanctuary state known as California. Fewer lawful residents means less funding, and if illegals duck the census to avoid the question, then this could reduce the number of electoral college votes and congressmen for California and New York. Their influence would therefore shrink, and they would take fewer federal dollars in. Don't let the Democrats make the census as worthless as a Chicago voter registry. Support President Trump's plan to put the citizenship question on our census.
This has been the Phyllis Schlafly Report from Phyllis Schlafly Eagles. As President Trump fulfills his campaign promises, his accomplishments on trade, immigration, the economy, and protecting the unborn should be celebrated, not ignored or diminished. To track these victories, go to phyllisschlafly.com. and find out what's next for the Trump presidency at phyllisschlafly.com. Thanks for listening to the Phyllis Schlafly Report.
Welcome back. 800-951-0592. Quick look here at the markets. The Dow is rallied 380 points as Jay Powell says that interest rate cuts could be on the way. Then there's and trade hopes that don't believe that one. There was a funny little thing. One of the Chinese high level guys said that the trade talks needed to be handled through dialogue. And that got everybody excited. Oh, yeah, China wants to talk. China will always talk. But see, what they didn't do is they, kind of like everything else, right? They only gave you half the story. Because here's the part they didn't report in what he had said. Yes, obviously needs to be handled through dialogue. Yeah, okay, right. I mean, if you're going to have an agreement, someone's got to talk to somebody. But they left out the biggest part of what he said, which was we need to talk this out. But by the way, the United States needs to understand that there needs to be a mutual level of respect, is what the Chinese are calling it. Hardly anything optimistic. Essentially what he was saying is, hey, we're ready to talk as soon as you're ready to allow us to be the winner, right? Because that's what China's going to do. But neither here nor there. The big move was all Jay Powell today. He's going to do whatever it takes, which really is I think, could really be the turning point for the dollar. Well, the dollar has rallied. You think about the dollar was getting ready to be, it was in the low 90s when the Fed started this rate hike cycle. Now the dollar, like today, the dollar's been losing ground. The dollar was 98 on its way to 99. Right now it sits at 97.21. But it looks like dollar weakness is now going to be the new trend if Jay Powell follows through and we truly do start cutting interest rates, which is really setting up this new, very interesting technical chart in the gold markets, and talking about gold and where it could be headed, and I brought up all the the old chart history for gold, because it's how all of these algorithms are really based upon. And you think about the low we hit when we hit 250, okay, and then we rallied essentially, with some ups and some downs, but we rallied from 250 to 1,050. It's kind of, it was about, let's just call it 4 times, right? 250 times 4 is 1,000, right? Okay, so let's just say it was 4 times was the jump. Now we're getting ready, right? The new low, right, was that 1,050, right? That's the new ultimate low water mark. If I was to say that was your 1999 or 2000 when gold hit its bottom, that would have been the bottom of this cycle. And you really think about, gold when I started was in the low 300. So we had a little bit of a rally, a little bit. Gold moved a little bit in 01 and 02 and 03, but it wasn't huge. Very similar to what we see today, right? We hit the lows, we hit that 1,050. Gold's gone up in the last 3 years, but it was, not huge, but momentum. And then it took off like a cannon. Gold really started in 04. Gold went on this rally from 04 to 2011. That was really, a sight to be seen. But what we're seeing now is if you take 1,900 as the old all-time high, right, and you look at if 1,050 is the bottom, right, you take 1,050 and you say, hey, it's going to be 4 times higher than the old bottom, right? So take the old bottom was 250, got to this new bottom, 1,050. You multiply that 4 times, and hey, you're staring at $4,200. And this is why all these technical charts that we talked about today all have the same thing. The low numbers are in the 3,000 range, the high numbers in the 5,000 range. You take the average, and it all ends exactly at the same point right around that $4,200 gold mark. And so I would say if I was looking at this, that's what I think the computers are going to do. That's what I think they're going to do, and I think that's what's going to that's what we're looking at, because you got to remember you just start looking at debt levels. The debt level when gold was hitting this rally was about 10 trillion, right? From about about 12 trillion to 22 trillion. Gold had slid for a lot of that. Now it started back up. But 10 years from today, I've already told you, the debt level is going to be, 40 to 50 trillion? So I'm looking at gold and saying, 3 to 5,000 seems awfully right. So that's kind of what we're looking at from a technical perspective. Like I said, this is all the waves and all those things. I'm not a big technical guy per se, but you have to be, because this is how the models trade. This is what's happened in gold. This is why the rally has been so swift. Because all these computers move at all at the same pace, all at the same, all trading off the same algorithms and causing the move higher. We'll have to wait and see, obviously, right? Nothing's set in stone. But this is a very good, and I've been really trying to stress over the last several weeks, this is a good entry point to start that buying again, start putting it away, start getting ready. The economic data, and they talk about really what two data points do they only talk about now? They talk about the unemployment rate, and they talk about jobless claims, right? And they're trying to convince you everyone's making more money. We know that's not true. The low end is, the high end is, the middle actually is still losing pay. And that's just how the numbers bear out. Those good-paying jobs, there's just not that many of them anymore. So you have a very interesting market setting up here. We'll see how the dollar reacts, as the Fed now apparently, according to Jay Powell today, is looking like it's going to be in rate-cutting mode. Stanley Druckenmiller says they're going to zero. That means they're probably looking at a big gold rally to go along with it. We'll be back right after the break.
All right, the number to call, 800-951-0592. I'm jumping back in while Joe's exploring some information on our problem here at KHNC. So that's the number to call. Yeah, get yourself right with gold and silver. I'm partner Jason here in KHNC Studios. By the way, if you are there in Arizona and you want to hear some of what's going on here in Colorado, you never know who's going to be on the air and at what times. We got some great programming going on here. Some real fun stuff to listen to. We have this show called The Open Forum. Eric Cederstrom was supposed to be doing a 2 or 3 hour syndicated type show, but it just didn't work out. Erica is not fully convinced he wanted to enter into this venture, so he gave it a shot. He decided that it was not going to work for him. And we filled these 2 hours. It's going to be Colorado time, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., which I believe is going to be 10 a.m. to noon over there in Arizona. And it's called The Open Forum. We're getting a lot of local hosts generally and some guys that are out of state, and we're going to fill that with different guys. And it's kind of like our own little fight club, or our own group of guys that they're all going to have their days where they do the 2 hour show with anything from conspiracy to financial to prepping to all kinds of really good shows about what's affecting America today. And it's going to be cool because Joe might jump on and do a couple hours. If he anybody that comes up with a really good guest or really good topics, they're going to we're going to bring that on the air and we're going to talk about it. So, some stuff that it's fun doing it with Joe because Joe's he's a little more I guess you would call normal. He sees the world more normally, but he's hearing some of these some of the crazy stuff that goes on and the crazy callers and listeners at KHNC. And He's one of those guys that he keeps an open mind, and if you got a good story to tell and you got a good theory on how things work and it's different, we put you on if you sound intelligent and have a good way of presenting your material, and it's great. We did a show here on the Colorado Front Range News Hour. We did a 2-hour show with another local show which has left the air, and we got this guy Mark Sargent on. He is the leader of Flat Earth. There's a couple of guys that are the leaders on this theory that the Earth is actually flat, and it's, for the average person, me included in the past, I would have thought, just a scant, few years ago that's completely absurd. But then you listen to the guy, and he starts talking about the evidence and the weird things about how the world works as far as travel. It's funny. The thing that sticks in my mind the most when it comes to Flat Earth, and I talked to Mark Sargent about it, was, we have these nonstop flights from Europe to North America. And a similar distance, sometimes a shorter distance, is Africa to South America. If you look at the globe, you look at the map of the world, and there is no such thing. There is no nonstop flights. Why is that? Why can't you fly from that continent to Africa or South America to the other one? Why is that not possible? If you're in Africa, you have to go all the way north up into Europe, cross the pond, and then go all the way back south into South America. Flat Earthers have a different map that they feel the world is presented differently, and it makes you wonder why don't they have those flights? Are these guys true? And I won't go through all the information. You'll have to look it up for yourself. But if you do go to 1360khnc.com, especially from 10 to noon Arizona time and 11 to 1 here in Colorado, you're going to hear some good stuff. The show that's coming on next for us is Glenn Tate. He does Prepper 2.0, a show that we cover on the weekend. Joe and Glenn have had a pretty good relationship going here for the last couple of months. Glenn's a great guy. He's got real good information. He's got that fighter spirit like the guys we're putting on the air here. So you guys in Arizona, you don't have to be left out. If you guys want to hear what we're doing over here, all you have to do is go to 1360khnc.com, and you can listen in to some interesting stuff. Some of it might sound really crazy, but we call it open forum for a reason, because we have many hosts, we have many guests, we have many topics to cover, and we have callers. These are also call-in shows. If that's something else. You could call. The number is 970-587-5171. Right there in Arizona, you could call over here to Colorado when you hear the host that's covering a topic, and if you want to chime in, there's nothing stopping a guy from Arizona chiming in on our Colorado station here. So, it's an exciting time over here, and probably one of the reasons why Brian and I haven't gotten to do a guest host of Joe's show. Love to get on to Arizona and talk to you guys, because we're definitely a different flavor than Joe is. So it gives you guys something different. So the number to call to buy gold and silver. This is what we do. This is what Joe and Eric started. This is what myself and my partner Brian and Glenn. This is what we are continuing with. Selling gold and silver to get you set right, to protect your savings, your hard-earned money, get it out of the Ponzi scheme that is the Federal Reserve System. You call 800-951-0592, and we will get you set up. I believe Wendy and Arlene are possibly both in the office today. They will take your phone calls. Joe always has these great deals that come on the air, and it's the cheapest thing we have for that day, or if we run the deal for a couple of days, it's the cheapest thing. But that is a number you can call, and you can purchase anything that's on allamericangold.com, the website. You can go there and just shop anything you want. I was saying earlier in the show before Joe jumped on, this is the good old days. This is one of those times in history where 5 years, 10 years from now, you're going to tell people, well, I bought all that silver and gold back in 2019, back when they were in that kind of skid, that time frame where it seemed to bounce between $1,200 and $1,400, didn't really do a whole lot, and then it shot up. I hear the old timers that come in and I do business with, they talk about when they were buying it at $250 just a scant 15 years ago. That's what you want to be. You want to be one of those guys here in the coming years. 800-951-0592 is your way to buy it in the good old days. We'll be right back. We got one final closing segment here on the Patriot Trading News Hour. Final segment here on the Patriot Trading News Hour, the place that you purchase your gold and silver for 23 plus years. The number to call to do that is 800-951-0592, and you can go to allamericangold.com. I think it's interesting when I talk to the customers, since I've been here, I've been here over a year now, here in Colorado, and everyone's got their different path, how they figured out that gold and silver was important to be a part of your home economy, your savings. Myself, I was one of those guys in 2000, the very end of 2004. I was one of those guys that they gave the mortgages to. The people that didn't qualify shouldn't be buying homes. I was one of those guys. I was a pizza delivery driver. I actually paid all my bills. I'm a very efficient person, so I can make the most out of very little. So, but way back in those days, I was a full-time pizza delivery driver. I love tips. There's a way that you can get around some of the taxes with claiming claiming or not claiming tips. And so we had a friend who became a real estate agent, and she came to us, and my wife and I, and she's like, we had just had a baby, and we were more than thrilled that someone said, hey, you could probably buy a house. Yeah, stated income. Yeah, you just tell them whatever you want. And we were living in a trailer at the time, so we had to sell the trailer to get into this house. And so we got a house. We were one of those stated income loans. We just told them we earned all kinds of money so we can get the lowest rate and all that. Got the one of those loans that goes up every couple of years. It was not a fixed rate; it was a variable rate. Excuse me. And what's funny is because I am so good with money. When the housing bubble burst, both houses on both, because it was almost like the trailer parks moved into this housing area we went to. It was definitely starter homes. And then 2008 hit, by about a year or two later, the houses on both sides of me and all three houses across the street were all empty. And I was still paying my mortgage. And the way I found gold and silver was I was like, well, I don't like debt. And I looked at interest. It's like, well, I'm just giving a bank money for the privilege of, for the privilege of having a house. They loan the money, I give them interest, and it's fair. But I started adding up the payments. It's like, well, gee, I paid X amount of dollars to purchase the home, but by the time the payments are done, I'm paying for almost another house. And I was thinking, man, why should I buy two houses for the price? And I'm only getting one. So I started paying down interest every month, extra 100 here, an extra 200 there, an extra 300 there. The tax returns that come in, I'll just give them, I got $2,000 in a tax return. I'll just give them the whole amount. And I was doggedly paying down the mortgage as fast as I could. I ended up with a second mortgage that was $56,000, and with a little bit of help, I was able to get that paid off. I think it was 6 years or 8 years. It was I was really, really. My wife and I, we lived just on the least amount. And then I started finding gold and silver. It's like, what else can I do to earn money? What if I put the money somewhere else? And gold and silver seemed like a great place. I saw how it went up. I saw how the price of gold was going up to $1,900. Like, man, I should have bought gold. And I ran into this really smart guy. He's one of those, he's really, truly, he's like a rocket scientist. I asked him one simple question that got me really into gold and silver. I asked him, is it better to have no debt and no savings, or is it better to have $100,000 in savings and $100,000 in debt? And without batting an eye, he said, you need to have the debt and the savings. That is how you run your household. And from then on, I was into gold and silver. So 800-951-0592.